Powered by Riverside FM.
Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee Show today, and it was the first time that he had really ever been seen publicly in the last couple of months in terms of making a statement about anything. And Pat McAfee, who seems like he's getting all the stars on his show lately, like if there's anybody at ESPN that it seems like the stars want to come to right now, it's Pat McAfee. And I thought, to critique Pat McAfee a little bit, I thought to have Aaron Rodgers on his show for about 45 minutes to an hour to get some answers, maybe some clarifications on some things. I thought out of the 45 minutes to an hour interview, I thought Pat McAfee didn't do the best job in terms of interviewing Aaron Rodgers. Now, that could be for a variety of different reasons. I know those guys are pretty close. I know those guys are friends, so there's probably subjects that he didn't want to touch on. You know, Aaron Rodgers comes on his show pretty much every week during the season, and he didn't want to burn that relationship in any way. So when you're in bed with somebody like that, you have to be really careful, and that's the tough part about having relationships with some of these sports stars out there. But with that being said, there were some things that I kind of extracted out of the interview. You know, I wanted him to dive a little bit deeper into the Minnesota Vikings conversation of things. And of course, I'm a little bit biased, but I wanted him also to dive a little bit deeper into the Pittsburgh Steelers conversation about things. It seems to me that the only thing he really went in depth in was what happened when he got released from the Jets. And I thought he really got deep into that. He basically said he flew in. He really mentioned that he flew in on his own dime. You know, he injected that in there. So the Jets did not fly him in. And he thought since he was flying in that there would have been some dialogue about the vision of the team, that it would have been a longer meeting. But he said that the meeting lasted for about 20 minutes. He was in there having a conversation with the head coach, Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn left the room, then brought back the GM. The GM just sat there and asked him, did he want to play football? Aaron Rodgers said, well, you know, I'm willing to listen. And then he told Aaron Rodgers basically that they're moving into another direction. And Aaron Rodgers' first thought was, hell, you know, you could have told me that on the phone instead of having me fly in, which I can't argue that. I can't say that I disagree with that. But Aaron Rodgers did say, for the most part, the glaring thing, and I'm just going to pull out some of the glaring things that Aaron Rodgers said during the interview. He said that he's open to anything. And he mentioned that he was not holding anybody hostage. And I would have to agree with that. I think there's been a narrative out there that Aaron Rodgers is holding everybody up. And me personally, I don't see it that way. I don't understand why anybody would wait on Aaron Rodgers. Like, if you have an organization to run, first and foremost, your accountability is to your organization and to your team. So if you're waiting on Aaron Rodgers, that's malpractice, so to speak. Like, you've got to get your quarterback situation straight. You've got to get your personnel situation straight. And you can't wait for anybody. You've got to move on. And if you're doing that, it's a poor job. So I'm not going to blame Aaron Rodgers for the Pittsburgh Steelers' lack of movement. Unless Aaron Rodgers is telling them, hey, man, give me about 3 weeks. Hey, give me a month. I may be thinking differently. And it sounds like from the Pat McAfee interview, Aaron Rodgers stated during that interview that he told the Pittsburgh Steelers, hey, if you guys need to move on, I understand. Go ahead and move on. Now, if that's accurate, and I'm going to assume that is accurate because Pat McAfee is one of the biggest platforms out there. I don't think Aaron Rodgers would go on there and tell a lie. He's telling Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you need to move on, move on. So to me, that's not holding someone hostage. Like, the Pittsburgh Steelers have to move on and get their quarterback situation set. If they don't, and things happen to the Pittsburgh Steelers where they're unsuccessful, That's on Mike Tomlin, the GM, the management of the Pittsburgh Steelers, not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers said he's open to anything, and he's leaving retirement as a real possibility. He's got some things going on in his personal life that he needs to take care of, and that's ahead of football right now. And I'm not going to speculate what those personal things are, but everybody has family out there. Your family comes first before your job. So essentially, if there are some things that he needs to take care of in terms of his family, his head is in the right place. And the Minnesota Vikings, the New Orleans Saints, the Pittsburgh Steelers, no matter who you talk to, should not be waiting on Aaron Rodgers. He has told you, as he said on the Pat McAfee Show, that he's been upfront and honest with every organization that he has talked to about his situation. So credit to Kevin O'Connell and our guys. They have chosen to move on if they were even considering anything. They've decided to move on with J.J. McCarthy. And so I think the Pittsburgh Steelers should do the same. Aaron Rodgers shared that he is in a serious relationship and he has personal commitments, including supporting loved ones and loved ones that are facing challenges. So again, who knows what those challenges are? And he said these factors are influencing his hesitation to commit to a team. So I completely understand that. One of the most glaring things out of that interview that I pulled out was Aaron Rodgers' financial consideration. And I have thrown out there several times during my podcast that I don't think Aaron Rodgers is in this for the money. So the reports, again, people aren't talking. So a lot of people that are doing, podcasts and people that are doing these shows, they're throwing a lot of fool's gold out there because they're not talking to people. They're just speculating, and they're creating a narrative. Aaron Rodgers came out and said today that he has never told anybody that he wanted a multi-year deal worth any amount of money. That conversation has never taken place. He basically said, I don't need the money. He said he is willing to play for as little as $10 million. So the numbers that have been thrown out there in terms of what Aaron Rodgers has wanted, according to Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee Show, a huge platform where anybody out there in terms of organizations that he's talked to could prove that he's lying about this. So I'm assuming what Aaron Rodgers is saying is pretty accurate, that he's willing to play for as little as $10 million, man. He indicated that money is not a driving factor in his decision-making. And I have always speculated it's winning. He confirmed that he had discussions with the Minnesota Vikings. He confirmed that he had discussions with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He confirmed that he had discussions with the New York Giants. Rodgers clarified that he's not waiting on any team and is operating on his own timeline. Again, he is putting whatever personal relationships that he has in front of everything. That is his priority right now. I think the Jets' reflection is huge. Rodgers described his release from the New York Jets as surprising, but not upsetting. Noted that the communication could have been handled better from the New York Jets. And he said he's not surprised that things kind of went the way that they went, observing some things over the past 2 years on how the Jets operated. That could have been a little jab to the New York Jets, but things didn't go well. So again, I think with Aaron Rodgers, I think retirement could be a real possibility for Aaron Rodgers. Because when you're dealing with life and you're dealing with personal relationships and you're dealing with loved ones that may be going through a hard time, that just puts everything back on the shelf, and it really blows up any timeline that you may have. It blows up any timeline that a team may have. So it's whenever that situation rights itself in terms of your personal life. When it rights itself, hell, it could be in the middle of a football season. It could be before training camp. It could be during the preseason. Who knows? Aaron Rodgers, if he is accurately telling us what is going on, he doesn't know when he's going to be able to commit to a team. And those were the glaring things that just came out of the interview. We really didn't get a whole lot of detail in terms of the Minnesota Vikings and what that conversation was about. He just said he has a strong relationship with KOC, and I'm paraphrasing here. They have been friends for about 17 or 18 years. They used to work out together. He loves KOC. That relationship, you can tell, is pretty strong. Aaron Rodgers also talked about, his flirtation with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so to speak. When the day that supposedly he had a visit with the Steelers, he was there for 6 hours. He told a story about how he had to sneak into Pittsburgh, land at a different airport, and drive a Malibu into the headquarters. He just wanted to check out the facility and what the Pittsburgh Steelers are all about. And he also said that he told the Pittsburgh Steelers, hey, if you guys need to move on, you guys need to move on. Why the Pittsburgh Steelers have not done that? Looking at their quarterback situation is really glaring. I personally expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to move now because Aaron Rodgers has put that out on a big platform for everybody to see and hear in terms of what he has told teams. And so these teams really need to find a way to move on until Aaron Rodgers puts out there, hey, I'm ready to commit to a team. And it seems to me, at least from what I pulled from the Pat McAfee interview today, that Aaron Rodgers really isn't willing to commit to anybody right now fully. And that's been the biggest reason, the biggest holdup for him not committing to anybody. Now, that could be a load of BS. He could be saying that, waiting for a certain situation to open itself up. And then all of a sudden, magically, things in his personal life are better. That is a possibility. I just think watching the interview today, there was a little bit of sincerity there. So I think he was sincere in what he was saying. I don't think that there was a lot of BS there. I do believe that there's probably some things in his personal life that is going on. So I'm willing to take the man at his word. In terms of the Minnesota Vikings, we've got J.J. McCarthy. We're going to commit to J.J. McCarthy and move on. Whatever happens with the Aaron Rodgers situation in the future, we'll deal with that when the future comes. But I thought that the Pat McAfee interview was really, really telling today. I wish Pat could have moved and dug a little bit deeper and pulled some more stuff out of Aaron Rodgers. Like, my first question would be, KOC basically came out and said that you were the guy that called them. I thought it was interesting also that I should mention Aaron Rodgers scoffed at the notion that he made a pitch to the Minnesota Vikings. Pat McAfee really didn't go any further. Like, he didn't dig deeper into that and ask any follow-up questions to that. But Aaron Rodgers seemed to laugh at the notion that he made some pitch to the Minnesota Vikings. So I would have, if I was the interviewer, I would have asked Aaron Rodgers, hey, did you call the Vikings? If things are going on in your personal life right now and there are things that you have to take care of, why pick up the phone and call the Minnesota Vikings if that's the case? Did that actually happen? Because for him to scoff at that he made a pitch to the Vikings, to me, that's kind of in relationship of you picking up the phone and calling the Minnesota Vikings. So if I'm Pat McAfee, man, I would have liked to have dug a little bit deeper on that question alone, because if things are going on in your personal life, things are going on, you really don't have time to really pick up the phone and talk football. At least that's the theme that came out of his interview today. UP Nation, if you guys know what I'm saying. Those are the things that came out of the interview today. So for me, if things are as serious in your inner circle as you say, what was the motive in picking up the phone and calling the Minnesota Vikings for a spot? To me, that's very contradictory. So it was a really, really good interview today in terms of it's the first time he's ever spoken on anything. I wish we could have dug a little bit deeper. Like, there are so many layers to this Aaron Rodgers thing. We didn't get that, but there were some valuable things that we could have gotten out of that interview that we really didn't get. So I was a little bit disappointed on that end. Really, really good interview. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. It really totally helps the algorithm. Again, man, this Aaron Rodgers thing is not going away anytime soon. And again, I'm going to take the man at his word that he was sincere today. And, I made a podcast a couple of days ago of why everybody is showing no sense of urgency. The Vikings showing no sense of urgency to sign a quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers showing no sense of urgency to commit to anywhere. If you take Aaron Rodgers at face value, what he said on the Pat McAfee Show today, then we at least got an answer to why he is hesitant to committing to a team. My only comeback is what I just said. Why pick up the phone? But we haven't gotten any answer to why the Minnesota Vikings are not having a sense of urgency in terms of signing a quarterback too. Now, we may get some answers in a week or so. In an NFL draft, 2025 draft is coming up. That may answer some questions. Maybe a couple of weeks after the draft, that may answer some questions. We'll get an insight on what the Minnesota Vikings were thinking. But at least we kind of got half of what we were asking answered today from Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. I'm going to say this, and I hope I'm wrong about this. I just don't think this Aaron Rodgers thing is over with the Minnesota Vikings, man. I just got a strange feeling. Again, if J.J. McCarthy is at the helm to start the season, I'm all good. This thing is just a little bit crazy, and I just get weird twinges in my stomach. And I'm not the type of guy that's just going to dismiss something to try to make the story go away. I just think that usually there is a certain order of operations when it comes to things like this. There's a whole body of evidence to prove how teams operate when they need things. And this is a pretty unique way to operate in terms of if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you have a Hall of Fame quarterback out there lurking. So I'm not Diana Rossini in terms of committing to this. And I think she's been beaten up a little bit, but I think she probably knows a little bit more than people are giving her credit for. It's almost like the Joe Flacco thing. Like, you were pretty sure that the Joe Flacco thing was going to happen, and you were pretty sure that the Minnesota Vikings had something going on with Joe Flacco, and it turns out there was nothing at all. And you talk to people, you get in contact with people you trust, people that you feel like have knowledge of certain situations, and you feel like, you've got it all, so you start to speak on it, and then you find out later that there was really nothing there. That was Joe Flacco. And Diana Rossini is probably getting some of the same narratives from her sources about the Aaron Rodgers thing, but somewhere down deep lies a glimmer of truth. Like with the Joe Flacco thing, Joe Flacco, he wanted to come to Minnesota. His people stated that they wanted him to be in Minnesota. They thought it was a perfect fit. That was the embers. But on the Minnesota Vikings part, for whatever reason, they were not super interested in that. So there was a intent on dialogue, but it didn't happen. And I kind of feel like it's kind of the same thing with the Aaron Rodgers thing, man. We're going to keep following this. I know people are tired of the Aaron Rodgers thing, but it's valid and it's a big story. If this were to happen, that would be a big deal for the Minnesota Vikings. And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign with the Minnesota Vikings, which I think is a long shot, I think that's a big deal as well, because He either goes to another team, and that's a story, or he retires as a Hall of Famer, and that's a story. So either way you go, whether you like Aaron Rodgers or don't like Aaron Rodgers, he is a story. So here on the UP, we're going to continue to follow this and talk about this when there's news to be talked about. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please consider becoming a member. Those that become members will be entered into a drawing to win a Minnesota Vikings Winter Warrior jersey. Thank you, UP Nation, for tuning in. And as always, I will see ya when I see ya. SKOL.